Welcome to the Girls Marketing Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things marketing and the perfect backing track to your workday. Every week, we get up close and personal with marketers revolutionising the industry so you can learn from the best in the game. From the latest marketing trends to building a successful marketing career, no topic is off limits. At Girls in Marketing, we champion progress, inspire change, and encourage women to take the marketing world by storm. Check out our website and membership to learn more and get involved, as we'd love to welcome you to our inner circle. Right, let's dive into another episode together. Welcome back to the Girls in Marketing podcast. Today we are joined by our final guest of season 5, and it's a special one. Joining us today is Sophie Lee, the incredible founder of Electric Peach, a brand and marketing agency doing good. Sophie has had an amazing journey in the marketing world so far, and I'm sure you'll learn so much from this episode. We'll dive into Sophie's early years and hear how she got started in marketing, including her fascinating role at Disney in Shanghai. We'll also discuss her opinion on manipulation in marketing, exploring the right and wrong ways to use our skills and how to measure the impact beyond just ROI. Before we dive in, I want to ask a small favour from you listening. As Sophie is the final guest of season 5, if you've liked any of the guests we have had on the podcast this season, please follow and subscribe to our show. It only takes around 30 seconds and it really helps us out as a podcast. Thank you so much for being part of the Girls in Marketing podcast. Enjoy the episode. Thank you so much for being here today, Sophie.
Thank you for having me.
I am so excited to have a chat with you.
Me too. Me too.
So I want to get started and talk a little bit about your early career.
Yes.
How did you get started? What was that journey like for you?
I started my career as a journalist and I was working in Shanghai. I kind of pestered my way into working for Shanghai Daily. And it was at a time many moons ago in 2011. And back then there was a lot of opportunity in Shanghai specifically. So I pestered my way into Shanghai Daily and I thought I was going to become a journalist, came back to the UK, did my master's degree in journalism, and then realised what being a journalist in the UK actually entailed and was like, this is definitely not for me. I don't want to be a pariah of people's misery. And I accidentally found myself in content marketing off the back of that. So it was never really my dream to be in marketing. But now that I've worked in the industry for a really long time, I have fallen back in love with it again.
Yeah. It's so interesting because so many people fall into marketing.
Yeah.
I think maybe a little bit more these days it is people's dream job because, you know, YouTube and TikTok and all the kids are saying they want to be YouTubers or TikTokers and stuff like that. But I think it is, especially in the last few years, it's become a bit more trendy. But years ago, like, it definitely wasn't. It was something that obviously a lot of people do fall into.
Yeah, I think from my perspective as well, because I was quite a socialist when I was younger and I just really wanted to make the world a better place. And I saw marketing as being the antithesis of that it was this awful corporate machine that manipulated people and was making the world a worse place. So when I reflect back when I was at university and all my friends that were studying marketing, I would be like the one lecturing them on the way back from a festival, like, you should do something more worthy with your time. And then I'm the only one that actually ended up working in marketing.
Yeah. I think a lot of marketers have like a background in journalism. You know, often we see people studying journalism and then going kind of towards marketing. Why do you think that's the case?
Journalism is a really great foundation for marketing because it's all about people, stories, really should be driven by data and being inquisitive to find out more and using communication to tell that full picture of a person or of a situation. So I think it's a great grounding for it, but I wonder if the reason that people then fall into marketing from that is because similarly to me, they realised, I don't really want to do the death knock. I don't really want to constantly be looking for the worst of humanity so that I can always have a story to give to my editor. And marketing uses the same skills, but isn't quite so stressful and pariah-ish.
Yeah. I think there are a lot of like topics and disciplines that are similar to that because my background's psychology and I learned so much and my background in psychology allowed me to have those transferable skills to marketing.
Yeah, well, marketing is behavioural psychology. Mm-hmm. So I think I think if you're interested in people and what makes people tick and why we behave the way we do, which is really all that led me into journalism in the first place, then marketing is quite a perfect career for you.
Yeah. Do you think then, is it about finding marketing sooner or just about understanding, oh, maybe I'm interested in this? I'm interested in people and maybe going into it like later. Is there a time to get into marketing?
I don't know if there is. I think definitely you need to really want to these days because it is not the easiest industry to get into now. But I think if it's something that pulls you and you really are interested in it, and certainly it's super varied. There's so many different ways to apply it. There's so many different skills you can apply to it. There isn't the perfect time. It's just if that's what takes you in that direction.
Did you know that 44% of full-time workers say they have a side hustle or passion project? Have you got that burning idea to start a passion project but no idea where to start? Don't worry, you're not alone. Hostinger is a sponsor of our podcast, and Hostinger's new AI website builder tool lets you start a website super easily with zero coding skills required. Just write 3 sentences to sum up what you're looking for, and Hostinger does the rest. Start your passion project with Hostinger by heading to hostinger.com/girlsinmarketing and use our exclusive code girlsinmarketing for 10% off your plan. You never know where your passion project might take you. I guess that's what a lot of careers are like as well, especially marketing.
Mm-hmm.
If you are finding that you enjoy a certain area of, a skill or something like that, okay, maybe marketing is for you and you can kind of move into that.
Yeah, it is also super multidisciplined. And the more that you specialize, and not everyone does specialize, but if you choose to specialize, there's so many different ways you can do that. And there's so many different avenues you can explore if one area doesn't work for you.
What's your opinion on specialising? Because I speak to a lot of people, a lot of marketers, and especially more like junior, mid-level marketers who are kind of at that level where they're not really sure if they want to go into a more generalist role, so like a marketing manager role, or if they want to specialise in social media, content marketing, email marketing. What's your opinion on specialising?
Well, I specialise in communication, and that has brought me more into brand development and brand strategy, which is my favorite part of anything that I've tried within the marketing universe. So I guess it just depends on the person. I prefer to work with specialists though. And the way that Electric Peach works is that we build our teams to meet the brief. And I always look for specialists who are hyper niche, like they're specialists not just in something like PPC, but they're specialists in PPC for a very specific industry in a very specific way. And that's just because that's what works best for my clients. But if you're someone who just likes to have a really varied experience, then being a generalist is great. Mm-hmm. And certainly for me, because I've got experience in lots and lots of different areas, when it comes to consultancy, I think I can provide a much better service to my clients because I can look holistically at the big picture.
Yeah. I think being a generalist is really important, especially at like the start of your career.
Yeah.
Because it allows you to figure out what you like, what you don't like. So many marketers I speak to who are more junior, though, worry about getting specialists like too early and then think, oh, actually, I've decided I want to go down email marketing route, but I don't really like it. So I think another thing is like, don't pigeonhole yourself too much, be open to all of the different ideas and things going on in marketing.
Definitely. And I think that in all of it, it's like a Venn diagram, isn't it? There's so many different intersections. I, again, come down the communications route. So communications is really applicable to all different areas. If you're more in the technical side of it, then it's kind of almost impossible to not niche, because if that's the thing that you're passionate about, then the technical is always going to be the technical. And at the same time, I would say that everyone needs to understand some element of technical marketing to be able to be good at whatever their chosen area is.
Yeah. And I love what you said before about like the holistic view.
Mm-hmm.
So I do some like advisory stuff with founders, startup founders, and it's so interesting because I love to take a holistic view on like business as well as marketing. So many people, I think, and maybe listeners will relate to this, think of marketing just as marketing, but actually like marketing bleeds a lot into business as well.
Yeah.
And I think people don't realise that enough.
I think people don't know what marketing is. Controversial opinion.
Strong
I think
statement.
a lot of people who work in marketing don't actually know what it is. And the best analogy that I've come to is the analogy of the party. So you want to throw a party and you have a venue and it's really, really exciting. Your marketing is, how do you know what theme to have? How do you know who to invite? How do you know what music you want to have based on who you're going to invite? How do you know what their dietary requirements are and what kind of a buffet you want to put on? Your marketing is literally every single part of how you develop your company, not just how you tell people about it, which is actually more the sales side of it. That's the invitation side. Marketing has to inform the growth of your business because it's all about the connection between the business and the audience.
Yeah. It's so interesting because I love the analogy of the party, because I think a lot of people would think, oh, it's the invites that you send out and how the invites look and, you know, how you talk about the party. But actually, I totally agree. It's the party.
Marketing's the party.
Exactly. I think that's why I had a conversation quite a while ago now with Richard Cook from Monzo. It's a really good episode, so I'd say check it out if you haven't already. He talks a lot about customer experience and customer service and how that links into marketing. And I love that because I think, again, as you said, it's so varied. It's not just about, you know, telling people about the party. It's about like the experience when they get to the party as well, of like, how are they greeted at the door? Like, what's the party bag like? You know, all of these sorts of things. So I really love that analogy. And I think so many businesses and business owners and founders don't really consider that.
That is definitely the experience I've had with the clients I work for. A lot of them are actually really put off by marketing. They've even been burnt in the past, or it gives them the ick because it feels manipulative or somehow really out of their comfort zone. And when I explain to them, this is your connection to your audience, simply see it as that. It's the way for you to understand your audience as well as you possibly can, use their needs, use their experiences, what they're looking for to create a better service or a better product, and then tell them about how brilliant what you're doing is, and bring them in to help tell that story too.
Mm-hmm. It's so interesting, and I think like it when you speak, I love how you speak about it, because you can definitely see like the passion, but equally I think it's so true. I just don't think marketing is understood even by people who work in it.
Yeah, and I think that's been a journey for me, because I, for a really long time, would go to networking events, even after I started my own business, and introduce myself as a marketer who hates marketing. Or I'd be like, I'm a marketer, but really I'm a writer. Like, so it would always be like a caveat of, I'm not really a marketer. And that was because I didn't understand the value of it and the way to do it that wasn't this manipulative machine that I'd always thought it was, that it was really about building genuine connection and really genuinely caring about your audience.
Yeah. I would love to chat about your time in Shanghai and everything that you did there, because you worked at Disney, right?
Yeah.
So tell me a bit about that. Like, that must have been a crazy experience.
It was wild. So I was 23 and I had been living in the Czech Republic for 2.5 years before that, working as an English teacher, because it was graduated in 2008, right into the recession. And I decided that I needed to do something that was going to kick me out the bum and give me a bit of a reboot after 2.5 years of just existing in pubs, basically. And so I chose to go to China because it scared me, and rocked up like completely naive to what the experience was going to be like. Immediately got into a very, very mild but quite hilarious car accident with the taxi driver who picked me up from the airport.
Oh, no.
And it was hilarious just because it was a tiny, tiny collision, but we were there on the side of the road for about 6 hours while the taxi driver and the other car driver argued.
Oh, no.
It was fascinating. So I was working for Disney, and I started off being a teacher, and then went into their internal communications department and just saw it as my opportunity to move into working in a career in comms. And there's only so many ways you can say magic. And I found them all many, many, many times. But it was a really, really interesting time. And I always think Shanghai at that time was like how I imagine New York would have been in the in the 1920s, or Paris in the late 1800s. Like this sense of opportunity and that anything was possible. And I was very fortunate to be there at the time that I was, and really took advantage of that energy.
Yeah. So then you kind of have also worked agency side. So what was that transition, and how did that even come about?
So I came back, did my master's degree, decided I didn't want to be a journalist, and then worked in-house in a marketing team for a couple of years. Really great experience. I would always say it was best for me to start in-house because it gave me a lot more time, much, much more opportunity to develop my skills. And then I went agency side, and it was great. I mean, I was very fortunate because I quickly progressed to leading the team, and it taught me a lot about agencies that I don't 100% love. But from my own personal perspective, I got an awful lot from it from a career perspective. I don't think that agencies necessarily operate always in the best possible way, though.
Mm-hmm. I love the fact that you said about in-house and the fact that you were in-house first. Again, I speak to a lot of people who talk about agency versus in-house, especially graduates or people who are like early career aspiring marketers, and they say, oh, should I go in-house or should I go agency? And I always say in-house is best if you want to develop skills. Mm-hmm. If you want a bit of a slower pace, not necessarily, obviously startup in-house is completely different to large corporation. So there are going to be differences, but it's a bit slower in terms of like, you're obviously not client facing, and it also depends on how you like to work. A lot of agencies work on the model where you work on multiple clients, and at the same time, for some people that's quite confusing. It's not great to be writing a blog for one client one time and an email for another, an hour later. I know a lot of agencies are going towards like dedicated, people for certain projects and stuff now, which I think is probably the better way to go. But interesting that you say you did in-house first, and you actually think that's a good way to start.
I was really fortunate to have an incredible editor who really took the time to develop me as a writer. And the approach was always to take those journalistic skills, things like really, really finding what a story was and something that was genuinely interesting to the audience rather than just replicating the same old, same old. So that was a brilliant career development opportunity for me. And actually, this is quite an embarrassing story, but I had absolutely no idea about anything to do with marketing, and just had such a bravado about me. China really made me feel like I could take on the world. And before getting this job, I applied to an agency as something insane like their social media manager. And I got all the way through to the interview stage because I was really good at blagging. And they asked me, okay, can you explain to me how the algorithm works on Facebook? And I was like, sorry, what? They're like, the Facebook algorithm, can you explain how it works? And I was like, I don't know what that means. What's an algorithm? And now looking back, I'm like, oh my God, how to show that you know nothing by just one sentence. And luckily, again, I didn't have to blag it with this because it was in-house. There was the time, there was the space. It wasn't important to know what an algorithm was or how it worked at that point. So that when I did go eventually to agencies, I actually had the knowledge and I didn't have to brag it.
Yeah. It's interesting because, can you even explain what Facebook's algorithm is? Like, I feel like it's quite difficult, isn't it? Because
I can explain what an algorithm is at least now.
I get that. I think it's more just like, I don't know, I feel like that is quite an odd interview question, but maybe times have changed.
They were probably like, I have a feeling that this woman is blagging it. Let's ask her a question and see what she says.
Yeah, literally. That's so funny. I want to talk about ROI though, because I feel like you having so much experience in like a variety of different settings, and something that I talk a lot to other marketers about, and actually is a bit of, not a sore subject, but a bit of a subject that people don't necessarily love understanding, is like the ROI of marketing. Sometimes people shy away from it. So like if you're a bit more junior, or you think, oh, it's not to do with me right now, or if you're more senior, you just kind of like, we just do what we do and that's it. How do you measure like the ROI of campaigns, of marketing, when maybe the purpose isn't necessarily always just to get sales?
I think people assume that ROI means sales, but it's the R that you have to quantify first. So what is the return that you're looking for? Is the return that you want to build your audience? Is the return that you want to get more opportunities? Because I work in brand development. So a lot of the time I want to be elevating my visibility. And that could be going on a great podcast that has lots more listeners. So the R needs to be determined before you can even start to think about how you can measure that. And you're right, really looking at in terms of sales, that's a very specific type of marketing. I do think that we as an industry have got a little bit lost because we need to work with the sales team. Like, we're really two halves of the same coin. And it's wild to me that sales and marketing sit sometimes in totally different floors and don't have a conversation, because everything marketing is doing, even if it is about brand awareness, needs to be about driving the initiatives of the sales team and ultimately the initiatives of the business. So I can't give you an exact answer because it's definitely more complicated than that, but I really, really want marketers to start talking seriously about ROI, because otherwise, we will continue to have the reputation of being the flip chart department, where all we do is get our lovely, colourful pens out. And what we know is marketing's the party. Marketing is your business. It's every single part of your business. If marketing's just sitting over there with its flip chart and not being every single part of your business, then it's not doing its job properly.
Yeah. I think it's ultimately about knowing how to speak to people who don't understand marketing. Because I think the biggest thing, and you said this before, is like marketing is quite misunderstood.
Yeah.
So it's something that people, even marketers, don't understand.
Yeah.
So I think if you as a marketer can understand how to talk to people who don't understand marketing in language that they do understand, I think that's when you are going to get the results that you want to see. Business owners, especially people who don't have a background in marketing, what do they need to hear from you in order for you to get budget, for you to get sign off on campaigns? You know, what do you actually need to say to them for them to understand? Because I speak to so many people who say, oh, I had this like influencer campaign or this social campaign that I really wanted to do, and I took it to my manager and they said I couldn't do it. But did you actually speak their language? Like, did you explain to them in a language that they understand? Or did you just throw a load of jargon at them and then they feel just a little bit overwhelmed that they don't understand it?
Yeah, I think you've just summarized the number one most important lesson in marketing, which is always understand your audience. So always, the first thing you have to do in every single situation is to ask people, what do you want? What is your biggest challenge right now? What is your biggest fear right now? And that includes to the budget holder in the company that you're working for. Find out what it is that's driving them. And then you go to them with your idea and position it in accordance to what it is that they want. So, and to be honest, if what they want is something totally wildly different from what you want to bring to the table, then maybe it's not the right time for you to bring what you want to bring to the table. Instead, focus on something that can deliver what it is they're looking for and starts to build that trust and starts to build that relationship, so that when you come with your wild idea, they're already thinking, oh, this person gets me and they know, they get my business, they know what I'm here for.
Yeah, and they trust you as well.
And they trust you.
Yeah, a lot of it is about building trust with people, especially I think kind of smaller businesses and startups. And I think business owners are quite reluctant to like trust people initially, because when you are a small business, you obviously work with a specific amount of people, and it's not, I think it's easier for trust to be there for maybe bigger businesses because they have structure. Whereas when your business doesn't have structure, it's a lot harder to trust people with that autonomy of ideas and that sort of thing as well, isn't it?
Yeah. And also your budgets are so much smaller, and everything that you invest really matters. So whenever I work with small businesses, I really understand how precious it is, the gift that they're giving me. They're giving me the gift of their vision. They're giving me money that they could spend elsewhere. And how I treat that gift is really, really as important as what the outcome at the end of it is, because that is what builds the trust. That's what creates the great work. That ultimately is what drives the return on the investment.
Yeah. Why did you set up Electric Peach then? Was that one of the reasons? I feel like the way you're talking about it right now gives me, this is why I set up what I set up.
It was because I had really got sick of what I could see was an industry in crisis. Combination of reasons. So one, I hated using my time and energy manipulating people to buy things that they didn't really want or need, that made the world a worse place. I have a huge sense of social and environmental responsibility, and business is very, very much responsible for so much of what we can see in the world that really, really needs to be fixed. So it was a combination of wanting to create something that was about business as a force for good, wanting to work with businesses who were committed to that and help them to amplify that impact. But also because I could see that marketing was a very misunderstood industry. People getting burnt all the time, really undervalued industry, but totally essential for businesses to grow. So if you don't get that marketing is absolutely essential and you don't know how to do it or partner with someone who knows how to do it, your business can't succeed. It just can't. And I'm really passionate about helping small businesses to succeed. So it was all of those things bottled into one. I'm just going to do it myself if no one else is going to listen to me.
Yeah. So when you say you work with businesses that kind of do good, what does that mean?
It means that in their core, they are about social or environmental reform. Okay. So it's not just that they've got a CSR policy. It's not just that they sometimes donate at Christmas. It's their entire business model is set up to use the profits that they create to give back. But in the process of building their business, it's also about giving back. So an example is I work with a botanical brewery that use a regenerative process. So their entire process is about giving back to the soil that grows the botanicals that they then use to make the kombucha. They're brilliant. They're called Old Tree Kombucha. Sorry, I'm just going to big them up for a minute there. So their whole thing is about regenerative business. Another of my clients is a responsible travel company, and they work with the local communities to really ensure that we make a positive impact every time we travel. So it's not just a kind of last minute thing. It's really about every single decision that these businesses make is considering the impact on people and planet. Every single impact, not just the big ones. And so we help them to make more impact by getting them more visibility. I'm sorry, I just totally hijacked your podcast to do that.
No, and you know what? I think it's so interesting because I've seen a lot more businesses doing that now. And it feels nicer. Like it feels kind. It feels, the key word that makes and gives me the ick is authentic.
Yeah, I know. It's so inauthentic now, isn't it?
Literally. But it feels authentic, you know, when you know that, you know, some sort of profits are going into the community or they're going into, you know, whatever, that sort of thing. I love that. I think that's how we'd like all businesses to be, you know, at least most businesses. But I don't know if this has anything to do with the fact that you're a B Corp. So what does that mean and how does that work? Because we'll probably have listeners who work for B Corps or maybe people who are interested in working for them. I'd love to dive into that a little bit.
B Corps are a global movement of businesses that have pledged to commit their business to positive impact. And the way that it works is you go through quite a stringent process where they look at every single element of your business and then they score you based on each different part. So people, how you treat your teams, supply chains, your impact on the environment, whether your business is built with the model of impact. And then your overall score then determines whether or not you get accreditation. So you have to score 80 or above, but most businesses average about 50. And Electric Peach is 107.7. So, and that's because our business model. So in our articles of association, we have it legally written that we are not a business to make profit at all costs. We are a business to give back, use our business, use our influence as a force for good. And I would say that not all B Corps are made equal, and they are changing the way that they assess now, because before you could score really highly in one area and really badly in another area and still become a B Corp because it wasn't holistically looked at. It was just adding together. Whereas now they're looking at it more like the net sum.
Okay.
So you can't have slave labor in your supply chain and be a B Corp. For example, you can't have a certain model and be a B Corp. So it is becoming stricter, and I think that's really important, but it also could mean that it has more of an impact on small businesses because we just don't have the resources to maybe go as far as they want us to go to be accredited.
Yeah. What was the reasoning behind Electric Peach becoming B Corp?
It was a way to almost a kind of a way to show what we were doing and be part of something that we really believed in. It certainly has helped us when it comes to working with other B Corps. Just to have that kudos of like, I know that this business has to be walking their talk. Because on the whole, especially small businesses that are B Corps, they generally really are walking their talk. About 7 years ago when I started Electric Peach, everyone was talking about purpose. And suddenly all of these massive corporations from like McDonald's to L'Oreal were suddenly purpose-driven businesses. And it's just complete and utter rubbish. So the consumer rightfully has become quite really purpose washing, greenwashing. You're not really doing what you say you're doing. B Corps genuinely, on the whole, are doing what they say they're doing, and they're held to a high standard.
Yeah, I suppose it's that trust as well, isn't it? If you want to work with people who are doing, with businesses and people who are doing good, I suppose you've got to do good yourself as well, haven't you?
Yeah, exactly that. I was writing a post about that this week. It's like the easiest way to do ethical marketing is to be an ethical business, because that's the whole point. It's not about how can we make ourselves sound like we're doing good. Just do good, and then you've got all the things that you're actually doing that you can talk about.
Yeah, literally. And I think people forget that a little bit with marketing, is that kind of like doing good piece, isn't it?
That's the problem. That's the problem that I find a lot with the industry, is that it's about, because so much of it is about how do we get someone to take an action that we want them to take. It is about manipulation. It's behavioral psychology. And that's okay to a degree, but it can go way too far, where ends up someone's bought all of this stuff that they didn't consciously choose to buy, that's actually making a really massive issue in the world. And that for me is where it's like, this is not like ethical marketing isn't like a nice to have. It is an absolute imperative if we want to reverse the damage that we've created.
Yeah, it's quite deep.
It is deep, and I will always go there. I will always go there because it's really, really, really important. And I think that our industry has immense power, doesn't realize how powerful marketing is. So powerful. It's not just the mouthpiece of business. It creates culture. It creates group behavior. absolutely could be used if we all decided that that's what we were going to do very quickly to make huge positive impact worldwide.
Yeah. I just don't think that people realise that though.
Yeah. Because we fall into it. We're just like, well, it's only marketing.
Yeah. And I think especially the kind of purpose-driven stuff that you spoke about before, I think people just assume that a lot of marketing is like, how do we get sales? But it's not about that. It's the impact that also creates around it as well.
Yeah.
What do you have any like really exciting projects with Electric Peach then at the moment that you'd like to share? Because I think it's super interesting that you're working with purpose-driven businesses doing good. Like, is there anything that you're really excited about at the moment?
I'm working on a really important campaign with the Chartered Institute of Environmental and Eco-Management called Green Jobs for Nature. And it's all about getting young people from underrepresented groups into Green Jobs for Nature, which is the second least racially diverse industry in the UK. And I'm really proud of working with that organisation just because of how brilliant they are. Their team is brilliant. And I love everything that they're doing. And that campaign is so important because not just because it's the right thing to do to have a diverse workforce in any situation, but because we absolutely need diverse perspectives in the conversation around how we're going to reverse biodiversity loss, how we're going to save the natural environment. And if those people don't realize that there is a place for them in that kind of a career, their perspectives will be missing, and we need them. We need their perspectives. So that's something that I definitely would recommend everybody to check out. I'm working on another project as well for the travel company that I was talking about. I absolutely love them. They're called Pura Aventura. And I've never worked with a business actually that's made me want to stop being self-employed and go and work for them like actually as an employee. It's like the most joyful team, joyful company, really genuinely care about what they're doing and really are committed to their cause above all else. And that for me is really, really rare. It's interesting how quickly ethics can go out of the window when times are challenging. And this is not a judgment, by the way. This is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We all know. We all know about the importance of having your baseline needs met before you can get to the self-actualization stuff. So it's really impressive to me when businesses refuse to sacrifice on their ethics, regardless of the challenges that they face along the way. So it's an honor to be given the opportunity to help them with their brand development.
Yeah, I ultimately think I think you see the rewards of that sort of work when you are a business that has purpose at its core. Is you see the return on that in a way that maybe not sales as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's what a lot of businesses that maybe start with purpose but kind of like forget about it or lose sight of things. I think it's really important to have that there and have it as like a key part of what you do.
I think for me personally, it's the thing that keeps me going when everything is really, really hard. I think every human being needs to have purpose. I do genuinely believe it's a human need. Unfortunately, the world of business doesn't work like that. Or it does work like that. The purpose of business is to make money in a lot of cases. And again, I'm not here to judge that. It's just a very different perspective and a very different energy when it's about more than that. And when we're deliberately considering the impact of our actions on every single part of the business ecosystem. And when you think about any business, even tiny businesses have an impact in every single interaction that you have an impact. And then that impact creates more impact. And again, that's why I'm so passionate about it, because it genuinely can be transformative. And I am very lucky that I work with clients who can see that. And sometimes I'll be sitting in meetings and I'll feel like I'm going to cry because I'm just like, keep up, great people. And I feel like great people are the most special part of being here in the world.
Yeah, no, and I agree with that as well. I think if you work with good people and do good things, I think that gives you a sense of satisfaction, doesn't it, really?
Yeah.
And I think that it's so nice when you do something because you really love it and not just because you think you should do it. And that's ultimately, you know, falling into marketing, kind of like circling back to where we started, really. Falling into marketing and falling into doing something that you love is weird but so nice. And I think it's making sure that you still have that love there for it as well.
Definitely. And being self-employed, it's so important to have that, as you well know, because it's hard work. I think that for me, it was definitely about creating that sense of purpose and fulfillment for myself from a place of totally the opposite. And not that self-employment will be for everybody, because it really isn't for everybody. But I would say that if you're in your early stage of your career, really think about what are your values and what are you not prepared to compromise on, because this is an industry that will try to make you compromise. It just is. And that's, again, it's not a judgment. It just is what it is. Business is just business. And there is another side that is very different from that is valued and is trying to change the blueprint. And if that's important to you, and I'm not saying it has to be, but if it is, just make sure that you know that, because that will dictate your choices, and certainly it will dictate your happiness from being in the career.
Yeah. So let's say people have listened to this episode, which I've loved, by the way. I've loved being here with you. And they want to go away and they want to learn a little bit more about purpose-driven marketing. How can they do that? Like, do you have any recommendations, books, podcasts, things that you have maybe listened to or got involved with yourself that you would say, go and have a look at this or see this?
First of all, I would definitely recommend reading a book called Rethinking Marketing, which is by Simon Batchelor. They are awesome. They are also someone I know quite well, and they really have some brilliant ideas about how to reshape the way that you approach marketing. I think the other thing to be really careful about is when you're looking at purpose-driven marketing, to interrogate it, because a lot of businesses will say that they do it or that they have a purpose because that's what they think that people want. And really, it's not about what they're saying that matters. It's about what they're doing. And it's not that hard to find out what they're actually doing and to really trust that. Other things that have helped me along the way, to be honest, I can't think of any specific. There's another really good book called Green Swans. I can't remember who it's by, but it's looking at the economy and how to create a greener economy and why that matters. Mary Portas is a really good person, really influential person who talks about this a lot. Just find the people who are successful, businesses like Patagonia, that prove that it absolutely can be done and that it's not just some kind of socialist ideology. And honestly, the amount of times that I've been in business, like very serious business conversations or on podcasts or in panels, and I've basically just had people be like, oh, silly little woman thinking that, that you can change the world. I think you're going to come up against that. So find your tribe, find the people who show you what can be done and who are absolutely smashing it when it comes to business, but are doing it without compromising on their ethics. Yeah. And remind yourself regularly that your vision is valid.
Yeah. Well, my last question was about advice, but I feel like that's a really nice piece of advice. I don't know if you've got any other piece of advice for people who maybe want to get maybe into purposeful marketing or at that start of their journey, other than find your tribe, because I love that piece of advice.
My advice would be, well, firstly, don't let anyone put out your fire. It's really, really, really important. We live in a world where people love to extinguish one's spark, and your spark is needed regardless of whether you want to go into purpose-driven marketing or any kind of marketing. Your spark is needed because it's not the easiest industry to get into now. And don't rest on your laurels. You have to be the best at what you do. You have to be. And we've had conversations about this before, is now more than ever, it is really obvious when someone comes and they do a half-assed job. And the chances, if you're working in genuinely purpose-driven marketing, is that you're working with SMEs. And those SMEs have had so much heart and sweat and tears and stress poured into them. And you need to treat that like a precious little jewel that someone has entrusted you with. And that actually would probably be my biggest imploring of, don't let marketing be thought of in the way that people think of it, because it can be this brilliant, brilliant tool. Be very responsible about how you use that tool.
Yeah. I love that advice. I've had such a lovely conversation with you today. Thank
Me
you so
too.
much.
I feel like I've just been on my preachy pulpit, but that's just where I always go. So
no, I've absolutely loved having you. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Girls in Marketing podcast. It was a good one, wasn't it? If you enjoyed the episode, please leave a review and rating of the podcast and share it with someone who may find it useful. Your support really does go a long way. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode, but in the meantime, keep up to date with Girls in Marketing over on social media and our website. We'll pop some helpful links in the description.